Do you know what I like about numbers? Numbers need to be interpreted, obviously, but it says what it says. You cannot argue with a number. Um, so I love statistics. You can't get too touchy-feely with it. And it is important sometimes to have good statistics. And today I want to bring to you numbers that I think are very telling. And it's about whether a freer market system, leanings towards more of capitalist outlook, whether that is good for a country or not, whether it's good for the citizens, not on paper, not is it the political correct thing to say, not is it whatever. It's the people in the country. How do they live? How does it impact their lives in the day-to-day? And you don't need to wonder. We don't need to guess. You don't need to phone up your uncle in Argentina. What we can do is look at statistics from the last, since 1970. And so some clever people have done this for us. So I invite you to look at the numbers with me for South Africa.
Radio Nuwe Your Christian lifestyle radio station. Chat with Corné. We scratch where it itches.
Good day, you beautiful people. Now, yeah, like I said, I like statistics. I like a number and a spreadsheet. And the good news for today is that if you, like myself, you feel in your heart, it sounds like a good idea to be more free economically as a country. It sounds like a dumb idea to have more rules from government side, to have more handouts from government side. Or maybe you're the other way around, but you're still wondering at least. Today I'm going to give you proof in numbers from all over the world, 165 countries, data since 1970. It's called the Economic Freedom of the World Index. And we've got the Free Market Foundation from South Africa and the Fraser Institute in Canada, and I guess a few other places, and they every year compile this index so that you don't need to wonder what's happening in countries with less red tape, less or smaller governments, less interference, all those kind of things that I think is a good idea. You don't need to wonder what is the effect of that on a country and on its people, because we can look at the numbers. So what is this index and what does it say? Let's see here. I'll put the links of this in the description below so that you can look at more in detail, in-depth explanation by the guys from the Free Market Foundation. David Ansara's got a few different interviews with people from South Africa and from America and Canada about this index, what it says and what it means. But I'm quickly going to show you kind of the bottom line stuff for for me in any case for South Africa. So this is just, if you go to the website, it gives you this this index here, and this is just a map for the whole world, and you can see here that the least free countries, all the red ones, and then all the way to the most free countries. And then South Africa is in the third quartile, second from the bottom. Okay? So what does this thing measure? Let's find South Africa here. Okay. So this is South Africa down there in the third quartile. Our overall ranking, remember, this is 165 countries. We are number 83 uh, out of the 165. But that puts us there. So if you go there yourself and you look at this whole index, you can kind of see where we slot against whichever country you want to look at. But what this does, it looks at these 5 kind of categories, and then it gives you a mark in each category, and it ranks you according to the rest of the world in that category. The first one is the size of government, which is a huge problem in our country. Not because we don't like a lot of people, but because a big government means a lot of money goes to waste, in a sense. The bigger the government, usually the bigger the handouts as well. So in our country, the combination between government salary and the handouts to the poor and the free this and the free schooling and the free healthcare that they want to put in, all those kind of things make it extremely difficult for economy and for the people in the country to flourish. Because if you hear the word free whatever, if you hear free healthcare, if you hear SASA, if you hear anything like that, now we need to look after people, obviously, that's not the point. But every time you hear free anything, it is not free. The government doesn't have a little piggy somewhere with cash in it that they can use. Every time the government gives out free money, it's taken from somebody that is making money. It's taken from working people, from businesses, and it's given to people who do not have an income or not enough, whatever. But it's given to poverty, and that's a bad idea. It sounds wrong once again, but please, I've got this thing on why God is a capitalist. It sounds very Christian-y and sweety to say, let's help all the people who do not have, and we need to do something about the people that do not have. But the better idea would be to get these people to not have not enough, to get them out of poverty, and there's much better ways of doing that than taking from the people who create the money and giving it this way. In any case, the bigger the government, more problems. It is that simple. And also just because of the size of the tax, the bigger the government, then obviously because government will need lots of money, they need to tax the living daylight out of you. In our country, we do very poorly with size of government. Not a surprise. The second category they look at is the legal system and private property rights. Now, we are doing fairly well in this category because we have a decent legal system, apparently, which was news to me. But also keep in mind that this is the latest report is data from 2023. So that means that this is not true anymore because the property rights and a few other legal things in this country, the BEE next wave, is very messy. It will mess up this number big time, but it's not reflected in this data. The third category is sound money, and it looks at things like inflation, and the variability in inflation. So how secure do people feel in a country to work with money, to invest, to venture with their capital. The fourth category, and we're kind of in the middle, freedom to trade internationally. This was a surprise to me as well, how poor we are with that. I thought, we're okay with importing and exporting. Apparently not that well. And then the last category is just a broad one called regulation. And that, includes things like just a kind of general red tape for businesses that they need to get through to function there, as a business. It looks at kind of labor issues. It looks at credit. So these 5 categories make up then a total ranking that puts us kind of slap bang in the middle of the list but income-wise, and for the people in the country, kind of we in the third quartile. Now, what does that mean if you say we are on the third quartile? What does it look like for, I mean, these are all the good numbers now, but what does it mean for the people in the country? Because we don't really care as citizens what they say in government. It's like, you know, the previous video's little speechy thing of, you don't need to look at the mouths, look at the fruit. What is the fruit of the system of freer markets? Because there's nowhere on earth where there's like a free market. Or on the opposite side, a totally regulated market. People are somewhere, you know, in between the extremes, but the more you lean towards free markets, the better the figures are. And you can see this on this map here, if you go look at the whole map there. But what I want to show you in a bit more detail, what that means for the people in the country is the following. Firstly, if you compare the upper quartile with the bottom quartile, so the top 25% countries on that list, and you compare them to the bottom 25% of the countries on that list, this is the difference in the average income. In the top countries, it is $55,000 per annum, and in the bottom, it's $7,000 per annum. That, my good friend, is a more or less 7 times difference. It is quite substantial. And it gets even more interesting if you add, this is the lowest income. So this is the poorest 10% in the upper quartile and the poorest 10% in the bottom quartile. So this is to say, okay, well, people say that in capitalist systems, you know, free market systems, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And there will always be inequality in any system. But what happens if you look at the poorest 10% in the top countries and the poorest 10% in the bottom countries? Because that tells you, if this is a poor country, the poor in that country, what do they do? And the poor in the bottom country, what do they do? The poor in the top 25% earn $7.5K a year, $7,500 a year. The bottom 10% in the bottom quartile, or the poorest 10% in the bottom quartile, earns less than $1,000 per annum. So what I want you to look at is this. If you are the poorest of the poor in a free country, you earn more than the average in the bottom quartile. That, my dear friend, is very telling in which country you want to live in. If you are just a citizen and you need to decide where do I stay without knowing anything, you would obviously go for, well, I can make more money by being the poorest in a country with a freer market than being the rich guy in the least free country in the world. To me, this was amazing statistics, because this tells you that this is kind of the ta-da for this whole thing for me. It matters. It matters. Then what does it mean if you can earn more in a freer country? It means this. In practice, on average, people live 16 years longer. 16 years longer in the freer countries. Infants are 9 times less likely to die. Better healthcare systems. Children are 2.5 times less likely to work. I mean, we all know the story of China. You know, part of the reason why they can get the labor so cheap is they've got a lot of children working there and blah blah, all those kind of things. A lot of countries are known for child labor. Only if it's like a lot of control. In the free countries, you don't have children working. In the free countries, there's better tolerance among people. There's a general better attitude towards the minorities and the immigrants. And it makes sense because there's more money. If there's enough money to go around, you really don't mind if, a few people cross the border and they come in this country, take your job away. You don't mind. There's enough money. And then, which is very important in our country, governments are 2.5 times less corrupt when there's more freedom financially. It makes sense because to be free, you need a smaller government. You need lower tax levels. You need a lot of those things which you can't have in this country. And what happens then, if there's a bigger government, there's more money, more opportunity for corruption. So this is the practical things that will happen in the country that is freer financially. So I hope you find this insightful and good news. Now, not because we do well on this index, we do poorly on this index, but it tells you that the system that you look at in a country, the one that you vote for, you need to consider that. You cannot just look at what they say. You need to look at the fruit of the system, not necessarily the people. If I remember, I'll also put the link for this down in the description. But I had an interview with Bonsai Shongwe, and he made a very, very great point, which I'm going to repeat here. He said that if you look at a system, it is more important that you have the correct system than the correct people. If you think about, say, something like Kentucky, you can go into any Kentucky in this country and you can get more or less what you expect. Whether you in Gauteng or in the Cape or in the Eastern Cape or in KwaZulu-Natal, doesn't matter. You can find more or less what you're looking for if you walk in there. It does not matter whether the personnel there are friendly for the day or not, whether they have standard 4 or matric on their name. It doesn't matter whether they're white or blue or orange or what color they are. You can find what you expect anyway. Why? Because the system is what is producing the outcome, not the people. Now, obviously, it's better to have nice people in your Kentucky, wherever you go. But that's not the point here. It would obviously be nice to have good people, whatever that means, in government. That's not the main point. The main point is if you're in the wrong system, not even the right people will make the wrong system work. So, dear friends, what we need to do is look at the system in South Africa, and I can tell you from these numbers that the leanings of this government towards socialism, towards bigger governments, towards more handouts and free money, it's never free. They get it from somewhere. All those kind of things makes a difference to this country, and it needs to inform you when you go vote. And when you have discussions with your friends and people get like all willy-willy about socialism and what it can do, you have now hard evidence to give them. And that's it for today. So just a quick... that is my watering system on my veggies. Just a quick hello here. So if you want to make contact with us, you are welcome to do that. Please send me your ideas, comments, whatever you want to tell me. You can either email it to that address there, or if you are more on your cell phone, you can also WhatsApp or Telegram me a message to that cell phone number there on your screen. And then, depending on where you see this episode, if you did not know this, we have a whole platform full of radio content. So, radionuwele.com, go have a look, have a listen, have a read. And please like and share this thingy, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time. Please have a wonderful, blessed day. Radio Nuwele. The hope and truth.
Your Christian lifestyle radio station.